The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton was packed with Florida's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over elegantly dressed guests, sipping champagne and exchanging pleasantries. The annual charity gala was one of the most prestigious events in the city, a place where politicians, business moguls, and celebrities gathered to support a noble cause. Pam Bondi walked in with confidence, wearing a stunning navy blue evening gown that perfectly complemented her signature blonde hair. She was here to support the charity, just like everyone else, having received a personal invitation from one of the event's major donors. As she made her way toward the registration table, she noticed a few sideways glances and hushed whispers. It wasn't unusual for her to draw attention. After all, she was a well-known figure. But something felt different tonight. The energy in the room wasn't just curiosity. It was tension. A woman in a black blazer, who appeared to be the event coordinator, stepped forward with an awkward smile. "Ms. Bondi, may I have a word?" she asked, glancing nervously around as if hoping no one was paying attention. Pam raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Of course." The woman led her a few steps away from the registration table, lowering her voice. "I'm so sorry, but we've had some unexpected concerns from some of our guests. They feel that your presence might be distracting. We're going to have to ask you to leave." Pam stared at her, taken aback. "Distracting?" The woman avoided eye contact. "It's just, some of our donors have expressed that they're uncomfortable. We don't want to create any tension at the event." Pam let out a small laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. "Let me get this straight. I was invited to this event. I donated to this cause. And now, because a few people feel uncomfortable, I'm being kicked out?" The woman's smile tightened. "We deeply appreciate your support, but we just think it would be best if—" "Who's we?" Pam cut in. Her voice was calm, but her stance was firm. Before the woman could respond, a small crowd started gathering nearby, sensing that something was going on. A few people took out their phones, recording the conversation. Pam knew how this worked. Within minutes, this moment could be all over social media. Taking a deep breath, she stepped back, her expression unreadable. "All right," she said smoothly. "If that's how you want to handle this, I'll go. But something tells me this isn't the last you'll hear of it." With that, she turned and walked toward the exit, all eyes on her. But as she stepped out into the cool night air, she already had an idea forming in her mind. If they thought this was the end of the story, they were about to be very, very wrong. Pam Bondi was just stepping onto the marble steps outside the Ritz-Carlton when she heard the sound of camera shutters clicking. A few reporters who had been lingering near the entrance caught wind of something happening inside. She could already see a few of them checking their phones. No doubt the videos of her being asked to leave were already making rounds online. Just as she was about to head toward her car, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of the entrance. The back door swung open, and out stepped Melania Trump. Pam stopped in her tracks. The First Lady looked stunning in a fitted white evening gown, her signature sunglasses resting atop her head. As she walked toward the entrance, the air around them shifted. The hotel's staff, guests, even the event coordinator who had just escorted Pam out, everyone suddenly straightened up as if the presence of Melania Trump demanded a higher level of decorum. Pam wasn't sure if Melania had noticed her yet, but as she turned to walk past, their eyes met, and that's when it happened. Melania stopped. She gave Pam a quick once-over, then glanced toward the entrance. A subtle frown crossed her face. "Pam?" Melania's voice was smooth, but there was a hint of curiosity. "What are you doing out here?" Pam gave a small, knowing smirk. "Apparently, I'm not welcome inside." Melania's eyes narrowed slightly. "Not welcome?" She turned toward the entrance, her gaze landing on the event coordinator, who had suddenly gone pale. "Why?" The woman hesitated, visibly uncomfortable under Melania's piercing stare. "Mrs. Trump, it's just... some of the guests felt that Ms. Bondi's presence might cause unnecessary tension." Melania's expression didn't change, but her body language did. She squared her shoulders, took a step forward, and let a slow, deliberate silence settle over the moment. Then, in that calm, unmistakable accent, she asked, "And who exactly made that decision?" The woman opened her mouth, but no words came out. Melania turned back to Pam. "Did they ask you to leave?" Pam shrugged, more like strongly suggested. Melania nodded once, then looked back at the entrance. Without another word, she took Pam's arm and walked her right back inside. The entire room seemed to hush the moment they stepped in. Heads turned, conversations stopped. A few people gasped softly as they watched Melania Trump escorting Pam Bondi back into the gala, completely ignoring the event staff. Pam glanced sideways. "Are you sure about this?" she murmured. Melania gave a small, confident smile. "I don't like bullies." And with that, they walked straight toward the main ballroom, as if nothing had happened at all. But this was far from over, because what Pam didn't know yet was that Melania had a plan, and before the night was over, everyone in that room was going to regret ever trying to push Pam Bondi out. As Melania Trump confidently led Pam Bondi back into the ballroom, the tension in the air was palpable. Guests exchanged nervous glances, hushed whispers spread like wildfire, and the event coordinators stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The grand chandelier overhead cast a golden glow over the room, but it couldn't mask the discomfort on the faces of those who had just witnessed Pam being shown the door moments earlier. The charity gala had been meant to celebrate generosity and unity, yet the exclusion of Pam Bondi had exposed a deep hypocrisy, one that Melania Trump was about to call out in the most unforgettable way possible. The two women reached the center of the room, right in front of the elevated stage where speeches were being given throughout the night. A man in a tailored tuxedo, who had been speaking moments ago, awkwardly cleared his throat and stepped aside as Melania and Pam stood before the crowd. At first, Melania simply looked at the audience, her icy blue eyes scanning the room with a gaze that could cut through steel. Pam Bondi, standing beside her, folded her arms and smirked, watching, as the same people who had tried to humiliate her now avoided making eye contact. Then, Melania turned and, with a graceful ease, walked up onto the stage. The crowd fell into a stunned silence. This was not planned. This was not on the schedule. She took the microphone, her elegant fingers gripping it as she tilted her head slightly. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence alone commanded attention. And then she spoke. "Good evening, everyone," she began in that familiar accent, her tone measured and calm. "I was honored to attend this event tonight. I was looking forward to supporting this important cause, just like all of you." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "But when I arrived, I found my good friend Pam Bondi outside." Her words landed like a brick. A few guests shifted in their seats. Others lowered their gazes, suddenly finding their wine glasses incredibly interesting. Melania continued, "I was confused, because I was under the impression that this was a charity event, one meant to bring people together." She arched an eyebrow, not push them away. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Melania let the words sink in before continuing. "I want to ask all of you something." She looked directly at the wealthiest donors in the room, the ones who had undoubtedly been part of the decision to have Pam removed. "What does charity mean to you?" The question hung in the air. Does it mean writing a check so you can feel good about yourself? Does it mean smiling for pictures, pretending to care, while privately deciding who is and isn't welcome? A few people coughed. The event coordinators were in full panic mode, whispering to each other. Melania didn't care. You see, true charity, true kindness, is not about controlling who deserves respect. She glanced toward Pam. It is about treating people with dignity, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. She turned her attention back to the crowd. If you can't even extend basic courtesy to someone at an event meant for goodwill, then what exactly are you celebrating here tonight? The room was silent. Some guests had their arms crossed, clearly irritated by being called out. Others looked deeply uncomfortable because they knew she was right. And then something unexpected happened. A single pair of hands started clapping. Pam Bondi. She didn't just give a polite golf clap, she gave a slow, deliberate applause that echoed through the room. And then another person joined in, and another, and before long, nearly half the room was clapping for Melania Trump, the very woman who had just turned their entire event on its head. As Melania stepped down from the stage, she walked straight back to Pam and gave her a knowing smile. Pam smirked. "Remind me to bring you as my +1 more often." Melania chuckled softly. "Anytime." The event organizers were in shambles, trying to regain control, but it was too late. By the next morning, clips of Melania's speech would be all over the internet. Pam Bondi hadn't just been kicked out of a charity event. She had walked back in and left with a much bigger victory than she ever expected. And Melania? She had once again proven why she was a force to be reckoned with. Bu videoyu beğendiyseniz lütfen beğen butonuna basın ve yorumlarda düşüncelerinizi paylaşın. Ayrıca böyle güçlü anları kaçırmamak için abone olmayı unutmayın. Daha fazla etkileyici hikaye için bizi takip etmeye devam edin.